T.O. Blaze.
Hey there, this is Tio bringing another Kerbal Space Program video. In today's video, we will not be going into space, into orbit around Kerbin or any of the other celestial bodies. We're going to stick around the KSC out on the coast and spend some time on the water. Going to go ahead and build an airboat, which is something I've kind of wanted to do for a little while. Think it'd be interesting to try. This is, as you can see on screen, I'm literally experimenting for the first time. This is all raw footage. The video is a little long because it took me a little longer than I would have liked to get the design to work satisfactorily, but c'est la vie. It is what it is. So why an airboat? If you haven't pieced it together, I am from the South. I'm from South Louisiana. And we got airboats down there. Some places call them fan boats. I do not. I grew up calling this an airboat, and that's what I'm going to call it. They're used in the swamp, not just in Louisiana, but in other places, perhaps probably more famously would be in the Everglades in Florida. I want to say there was a movie. What was that when I was young? Police Academy? There's an airboat in one of those movies, maybe Police Academy 5 or 6 or something like that. They're chasing perps in the Everglades, maybe. Anyway, so yeah, wanted to go ahead and experiment with one. I've never ridden on an airboat, but I've ridden on plenty flat bottom boats. They're meant for shallow water. They can pass over levees and swamp grass and mud and those sorts of things. That's specifically what airboats are made for. Swamp boats in general, not so much. You can go in shallow water, but you're not going to pass through nasty stuff without risking damage to your motor, your propeller and stuff like that. So yeah, never been on an airboat, but I've seen plenty of pictures. I've seen them from a distance, and they seem like a lot of fun. So I've definitely done some videos already with using rotors, and to this day they can still confuse me and they can be complicated because I don't practice enough with them regularly. So when I do use them, it's kind of like starting from scratch. You got to remember, you got to set the attachment points on the actual motor. You got to make sure the blades are engaged, because I think when you snap them on, they're not engaged. You got to get the pitch right. You got to get the direction of the rotor spin correct. You got to get the orientation of the blades correct. So there's a lot to factor in. And then on top of all of that, once you get it working, typically I like to use 2 of them rotating in opposite directions, because one rotor is going to create a lot of torque on the vehicle. So as you can see, I'm just experimenting. I'm trying to refresh my memory. I'm using the cowl controller to control the pitch of the blade. And I was going to go ahead and test the boat and use it at the Cove launch site. And I didn't have the Cove launch site unlocked in this sandbox. This is my new YouTube sandbox. I wanted the flag updated and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and explore Kerbin and find the Cove launch site. I've done this multiple times in other videos. Or at least have alluded to it. And I do have a whole video on finding the Cove. But it's just up the coast. It's really easy to find. So I hopped in my little jet and unlocked it. So now I can select the Cove launch site. And in my opinion, this was obviously designed for using boats. Like, it's got a perfect little ramp. You do still need to put wheels on your boats. Some of them can, obviously you can detach the wheels once you're in the water, but it's a really straight shot into the water right there. So it's like the perfect launch site for testing watercraft. So as you can see, my design's got some issues. It's heavy in the back. It's not very stable in the water. So I'm going to experiment with some different things. I have the option to lengthen the boat. I can reduce the mass in the back. I can increase the mass in the front. There's all these different options. I'm trying to stick with the aesthetics of an airboat. So it is kind of limiting. Obviously the easiest thing to do would be to put some jet engines under the water. And this thing would be nice and stable in the water and would function a lot better, but I'm being stubborn. So I am putting mass in the front. I've decided to do that. I'm putting fuel tanks so that I could use the fuel cell to produce electricity. Kind of half going for realism. Like you don't have a big gas engine, or there are some engines that I guess could have done the job that'll look somewhat realistic, but they were enormous. And for this application, I was going for something a little small. So kind of tweaking the design in the back here. I'm going to go with a smaller rotor. I think I can go a little smaller and it would still look relatively realistic. And also there you see I've finally decided to go with the tandem design, because I was experiencing a lot of torque, and I guess you could experiment with reducing the torque output of a single motor, but you're still going to experience torque on the vehicle. So I decided to go with the tandem. That's just I do that so often because it's tried and true. To me, it works and it's reliable. So gonna hopefully reduce some mass in the back. I did go with smaller rotors, and they're obviously going to be lighter weight. And let's go ahead and drop it in the water, see if that's going to be any better. I guess this is, like I was mentioning at the beginning of the video, this is the experimenting back and forth with the pitch and direction of the blades and the rotational direction of the motors. So one trick that I've figured out, you could study them and try to figure them out in the VAB, but you can also just go out on the runway, and if you set your RPM limits on the motors really, really low, you can visually see them rotate, because normally the RPMs are so high, it just looks like a blur and you can't see what's going on. But if you want to experiment, you can, like I said, set the RPMs super low, and then you can visually see the direction of the spin, the pitch of the blades, and it's much more intuitive, based on the direction they're spinning, which direction they're going to produce lift or a force. So that's what I'm doing out on the runway here, and I'm apparently I've kind of figured it out. So I'm pretty happy with the speed there, and ordinarily you wouldn't be going that fast over the land, and if you wouldn't have these wobbly wheels under it. Unfortunately, in KSP, I can't create it. I mean, I guess I probably could have clipped the wheels much closer to the bottom of the craft, but then the top of the wheel is sticking out the top of the pontoons, and I didn't really like that look. So here you see I've decided I'm going to lengthen the boat. It still looks pretty good. I'm not unhappy with that, and it should be much more stable, and we'll see how that looks. You can also see, obviously, the whole time I've had all these seats in the front. Airboats typically are used for swamp tours. And I suppose you could have one to go out and do some other things with it. I don't know if you'd want to use it for hunting because they're loud as hell. But yeah, getting to the end of the video, getting to the fun part. Like I said, I'm from South Louisiana, so we're about to have some fun. I did earlier in the video, you saw me. I was flying out to the Cove launch site. Well, my first attempt to find the Cove launch site on this sandbox, I overshot by a lot. I used a jet with some really, really strong engines. Didn't realize how fast I was going, and went way further than the KSC. Found something interesting, so I thought I would go ahead and share that with you guys. I'm about to have my sea trials, and yeah. So I'm having fun. Hope you guys are having fun. And think about it. I'm adjusting the fuel in the tanks, kind of changing the balance of everything. I'm going to go ahead and add a lifting surface to the front. I like how that looks. So let's get this party started. Oh, thank you for joining Jebediah Thibodeau's Swamp Tours. We out here looking for gators and turbinates in the water. Please keep your fishing poles and fingers inside the boat at all times. Hope you had yourselves a good time. Leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And remember, auf a Schwing Kashak, come a shot of news out.